Qasem Soleimani, Major General of the Iranian Revolutionary Guard, was killed early Friday morning by a targeted drone strike authorized by President Trump. Soleimani was a top military official and known for clandestine operations throughout the Middle East. This comes in the wake of mass unrest in Iran from the past few months. There have been widespread protests against the government, mainly in response to the rise in fuel prices, which has made life difficult to live for many people. By now the government has mostly effectively quieted the unrest, but international attention was brought back to Iran after the failed attack on a U.S. embassy in Baghdad on December 31st by Iranian-backed militias. This all comes, of course, with the backdrop of the Iranian nuclear program, which the Americans have been trying to thwart. The assassination of Soleimani has been met with outrage from Iran and many various political factions both in the U.S. and abroad. World War III has trended on Twitter, and there is widespread unease on what will happen next. In reality, it's unlikely that this will result in any sort of prolonged ground conflict. Even the most hawkish Americans are generally calling for, at most, bombing key nuclear installations, and though covert retaliation will surely come from Iran, attempts to fight America directly would just end in a quick destruction of the current Iranian government. The situation will probably de-escalate because of a lack of appetite for full-scale conflict from either side. The question that this all raises that I would like to discuss goes beyond Iran and this particular event. The question is, what is America and American imperialism even doing anymore? America is, of course, by any reasonable definition, an empire. It may not install explicit colonial governments like many past empires did, but it still operates with veiled colonial protectorates and client states, which are functionally the same as any past empire. During the 20th century, European empires felt embarrassed enough to start cloak their possessions as League of Nations mandates, and similarly, America talks about democracy projects. I don't say America is an empire with any animosity. Empires are human universal, at least in any advanced society. It's like the diffusion of air particles. Power will flow from where it is concentrated to where it is sparse. The existence of governments, the existence of empires, is always first and foremost about naked power. Governments exist because they are the most effective way at asserting power, at maintaining a monopoly on power. And empires exist because where there are weak governments and strong governments, the strong governments will ultimately come to dominate the weak ones. This is all normal. You could call it human nature, and I don't see any point in protesting against human nature. That's not to say you shouldn't oppose certain bad actions of an empire, but to oppose empires altogether is like to oppose governments altogether. The problem with the American empire isn't that it's an empire. It is that it's an empire that has entered a total crisis of meaning. What even is the American empire trying to accomplish anymore? When it gradually took power from the British and the French empires in 1945, the mission at least appeared somewhat clear. American influence existed to counter Soviet influence. Soviet communism did quite literally threaten the entire American way of life, so it wasn't a horrible cause to fight against. But, since the fall of communism, America has lost any sense of mission that it once had. For all the problems of any prior empire, from Rome to Britain, Qing to Persia, they possessed confident cultures, and they were proud to assert themselves. Empire is always first and foremost about power, but the culture of any prior empire was never ashamed to assert that power and to take it. Whether they were good or bad, they all had cultures and civilizations that they were proud to assert and to spread. But today America totally fails to assert itself as in anything. The country has been radically divided between two different camps, with opposing visions for the world. It isn't even yet an empire of progressivism. It probably will be soon, but currently it's only the opinion-making sectors that are controlled by progressivism. The universities, the media, the civil service, the bureaucracy. But the military state itself is a nothing. It's not progressive, it's not conservative, it's just naked power asserting itself. And, as I said, that's what empires are, naked power. But it's nothing else. The British Empire could justly have been seen as building British institutions throughout its empire, but 20 years on in an occupation, does anyone seriously think that Afghanistan has had any great American institutions imparted to it? The money pours through the American empire, and we have that term, endless wars, for a reason, because despite all the blood and treasure that is spent, it never seems to accomplish anything at all. This crisis that America faces is the same crisis that all the West faces. The meaning, the history, the culture that bound together Western societies is simply not believed in anymore. All the big problems we as a civilization face are a question of will. There's very little physically standing in our way to prevent us from protecting our societies, but our civilization does not have the will to protect itself. Just as power is like the diffusion of particles, that it will flow from where it is dense to where it is sparse, so is this civilizational will. If we do not exert it, someone else will. Thank you everyone very much for watching. Please like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell, and most importantly, please share this with anyone who you think might find it interesting. Thanks, and bye.